You know what's bizarre about drifting in space? The absolute silence. Well, except for my own breathing, which is getting increasingly annoying, considering I've got exactly, let me check, oh great, 47 minutes of oxygen left. Just enough time to think about every dumb decision that led me to this particular stellar moment. Captain Jace Calder, at your service. Right now, though, I'm just another piece of space debris, courtesy of our new alien buddies aboard the Serenity Nexus. Real creative with the name, huh? That massive structure looms about 2 kilometers away, its crystalline spires and bioorganic design shimmering under the light of their binary stars. Looks beautiful if you ignore the fact that these so-called friends just tried to kill me. Suit status? Let me check. Trying not to laugh at the absurdity of the situation. The display flickers. Another gem added to my growing list of problems. Suit systems critical. Oxygen. 46 minutes remaining. Propulsion. 12% functionality. Communications. Offline. Temperature regulation. Failing. And dignity? Completely absent. Okay, I added that last one myself. The suit's AI isn't quite that snarky, though right now. I kind of wish it was. At least then, I'd have someone to appreciate my gallows humor. The supposed inoperable maintenance port on my suit's left arm is giving the aliens a lesson in underestimating their prey. They thought I'd be a goner by now, but they clearly didn't bother checking my service record. 20 years of EVA repair experience means I know a thing or two about getting out of tight situations, like the one I'm in right now. I managed to redirect power from the non-essential systems. Who needs an atmospheric analyzer when you're already in space? That's boosted my propulsion to 15%. Not much, but enough to give me a fighting chance. At least the view is nice as I drift slowly back toward the station. The binary stars paint everything in an ethereal purple and orange glow, making the Serenity Nexus look like a chunk of cosmic jewelry. Too bad I'm about to turn it into a galactic crime scene. Irony isn't lost on me either. These aliens chose to space the one human who specialized in station repair and maintenance. Sure, I'm a primitive species to them, barely out of the Stone Age compared to their advanced tech, but they made one fatal error, underestimating human resilience. They thought they were being merciful by giving me a quick death in space. The truth? Their mistake wasn't in trying to kill me. It was in thinking they could. Now, I've got 42 minutes of oxygen left to show them exactly why humans have survived everything our planet has thrown at us. By the time I reach that maintenance airlock, their carefully designed station will become my personal playground. They thought they'd sealed it tight, but they missed a few things. Amateurs. These supposedly superior beings didn't bother learning their own station's emergency systems. They just copied someone else's tech and called it a day. Classic mistake. I muttered to myself, my breath fogging up my cracked helmet. I really should thank them, I say. I've been wanting to redecorate the station since I first saw it. Nothing says interior design update quite like a little systematic revenge. The safety light near the airlock flashes green. Only someone who knows exactly where to look would spot it. My lips curl into what must be a rather unsettling grin. 42 minutes of oxygen remaining. More than enough time to show these aliens what happens when you leave a human engineer to die next to their own equipment. I start working on the manual override for the airlock. Might as well review how I got here while I get myself out of it. The Centauri Concord, they called themselves. A species that had mastered spaceflight long before humanity figured out how to launch a rock into orbit. Tall, elegant beings with shimmering, iridescent skin and necks lined with multiple breathing vents. They moved like liquid mercury, speaking in musical tones that made every sentence sound like poetry. Too bad their personalities didn't match the aesthetics. It should have been obvious something was off when Ambassador Drax insisted on having the meeting aboard their state-of-the-art station. I should have paid more attention to the subtle twitch in his secondary breathing vent when he greeted me. The past 6 hours play out in my mind as I adjust the wires inside the maintenance airlock. They were confident, these Centauri. They'd even brought me in as the station expert for the diplomatic meeting. They told me humanity's first official exchange with the Centauri needed someone who understood their tech. 20 years of working on space stations made me the obvious choice. At first, everything went smoothly. We toured the station, and they casually mentioned how every system was light years ahead of human technology. Meanwhile, I made mental notes of at least 30 critical design flaws in their life support systems. You humans are quite adaptable, Drax had said. The way he said it, though, made it sound like a disease. Adaptable? That's one way to put it. I'd seen plenty of humans survive impossible situations because we adapt. That's when Chief Engineer Zane dropped the mask. He'd sneered through his upper breathing vents, then said, "Remarkable how you managed to achieve spaceflight so quickly. Almost as if you had help." I remember taking a slow sip of their ceremonial drink, which tasted like fermented battery acid, before responding, "Interesting theory. Almost as interesting as the fact that your secondary life support systems are still running on outdated proxies. That's unusual for such an advanced species, don't you think?" That's when the room temperature dropped faster than a hull breach. Zane's iridescent skin darkened to a deep purple. "Commander Calder, you're unusually knowledgeable about our systems," he said, his voice like a crackling thunderstorm. "I'm unusually good at my job," I replied, already reaching for the emergency beacon hidden in my pocket. They thought it was just a ceremonial pin, but it had a few extra features. Zane's arms twitched toward his weapon, clearly ready to take action. "Tell me, Commander, how many of our systems have you analyzed?" Zane asked. "Enough to know your artificial gravity relies on quantum fluctuation instead of rotation. Your atmosphere processors are running at 63% efficiency, and your maintenance airlocks still use manual overrides. Standard stuff for anyone who works on space stations." Then everything went sideways, literally. Zane activated a localized gravity fluctuation that sent me flying across the room. "We cannot risk human interference," Drax had said coldly as security drones surrounded me. "You're too dangerous. Too predictable." It wasn't long before they dragged me to an airlock. Thankfully, not the one I had my eye on. As they monologued about human inferiority and the greater good of the galaxy, I was busy. They never bothered to check my EVA suit properly. They didn't notice the modified toolkit in my leg compartment or the emergency protocols I'd activated. Drax's last words before he hit the purge button were, "A quick death is more than your kind deserves." The decompression blast cracked my helmet, but the emergency sealant deployed instantly, saving me from the cold void. They thought I'd die in space. They never bothered to check. But here I am, floating just outside their station, with my hands deep in their airlock circuits. And that's the problem with these Centauri. They underestimate us. We're dangerous not because we're unpredictable, but because we adapt. And right now, this human is about to give them a lesson in survival they won't soon forget, assuming they're still around to remember it. I've got 37 minutes of oxygen left, and the countdown feels like a ticking clock in the back of my mind. Each second a reminder that my window of opportunity is closing fast. But honestly, I'm not worried. This isn't my first rodeo, and it won't be my last. Space might be silent, but right now, the hum of my EVA suit's emergency power systems is music to my ears. I've turned this nightmare into my playground, and it's only a matter of time before the Centauri learn that leaving me to die was the biggest mistake they've ever made. The airlock manual override is almost complete. My gloved fingers work quickly, bypassing their pathetic security protocols. They thought they could make this a one-way trip for me. They should have read the fine print. My helmet's cracked, and the exterior sensors are barely functional. But I don't need fancy tech to do what I do best. I'm an engineer, not some glorified diplomat. They thought they were dealing with a simple mechanic who could be tossed out with the trash, but I've got a few tricks up my sleeve. The maintenance airlock is just ahead, and I can already see the flashing warning lights behind the sealed doors. Their system is a mess. A poorly executed design that relied on outdated tech and half-baked assumptions. It's the kind of thing I've seen 1,000 times before, and right now, it's about to become my ticket to a little payback. I can see it now, the explosion, a control breach that'll send the Centauri scrambling and remind them of one simple truth. You never underestimate a human. My thoughts are interrupted by a faint buzzing sound in my helmet, a desperate attempt to restore communication. Too little, too late. Their systems are as unreliable as their judgment. The signal crackles out again, and I can't help but snicker. They've probably noticed my little hack by now. But the fun part? They can't do anything about it. Pop! The sound of the maintenance airlock security lock disengaging is like a sweet melody. I feel a rush of adrenaline, but I don't let it distract me. I've got a job to do, and the station is about to learn the meaning of true chaos. I tap the side of my helmet, activating the emergency beacon again. The Centauri won't see it coming. They'll think I'm floating out here, stranded and helpless. In reality, I'm about to become the nightmare they never saw coming. With the airlock finally open, I slide my hand into the circuit panel and begin the next phase of the plan, the sabotage. The Centauri may have copied the tech of others, but they forgot one crucial detail. They didn't know how to maintain it. I'm no stranger to working with shoddy systems, and this one's about to be my masterpiece. The first trigger is set, but it's the second one that'll really make them regret their mistake. I activate a series of system malfunctions, each one designed to cascade into the next, creating a chain reaction of chaos that'll overload the station's primary life support systems. Their breathable atmosphere? Gone. The cooling systems? Crippled. Power to their central hubs? Cut off. I laugh under my breath as I work. This isn't just revenge. It's artistry. They may have had the upper hand for a moment, but now, I'm the one writing the story. I glance back at the shimmering structure of the Serenity Nexus, glowing like a jewel against the backdrop of space. In a few minutes, it'll be a furnace. I just hope they've got a backup plan for their life support systems, because if they don't, well, that's not my problem. 30 minutes of oxygen remaining. Time to set the final piece into motion. With a quick flick of my wrist, I initiate the last sequence, a signal to activate all emergency doors across the station at once. There's no way the Centauri will be able to react in time. They'll be too busy trying to fix their failing systems. The evacuation protocols will be useless. I'm already moving toward the next airlock, my fingers flying over the console, taking advantage of their inability to monitor the station's internal systems. They won't even know what hit them. I hear another crackle in my helmet, this time from the comm system. A voice. Drax. "Commander Calder," he says, his tone icy, "you've made a grave mistake. Surrender now, and we can offer you mercy. You're out of time." I smirk. Oh, they finally noticed. How sweet. Mercy? I reply, my voice dripping with sarcasm. I was hoping for something a little more explosive. Before he can respond, I cut the connection. I don't need to hear his threats. They won't stop me. The next series of controls is already in motion. I slide my hand into the panel and flip another switch. A hum vibrates through the suit as the station's auxiliary generators start to overload, sending a ripple of power through the entire structure. I can hear the systems grinding to a halt. The first explosion is small, but it's enough to get the station's attention. The emergency lights flicker, and a low rumble shakes the hull. But it's just a warm-up. The real show is still to come. Another explosion, this time much larger, rocks the station, and I hear the familiar sound of alarms going off. They're scrambling. Good. They should be. I feel the weight of the suit, the lack of air pressing in on me. But it's all secondary to the rush of victory coursing through my veins. The Centauri may have thought they could wipe me out, but now, I'm going to turn their perfect little station into a graveyard. I don't even bother to look back as I continue my work. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late. The Serenity Nexus will be nothing but a wreck, and I'll be long gone, assuming I don't end up as part of the debris. But I'm not worried. I'm Captain Jace Calder, and if there's one thing I've learned in this line of work, it's that a little ingenuity and a whole lot of grit can turn any situation around. And right now, I'm about to teach the Centauri a lesson they'll never forget. I glance at the oxygen counter again. 23 minutes remaining. Feels like I've got all the time in the universe. But I know better than to get complacent. This is the moment when everything either goes spectacularly right or terribly wrong. The explosions I've set in motion are still ringing through the station's hull, their echoes reverberating in the empty void of space. The Serenity Nexus is alive with alarms, lights flashing and red alerts blaring. But there's no stopping the chain reaction now. This station is going to burn one spark at a time, and the Centauri are going to learn exactly why you don't mess with humans. I reach the next control panel, the vibrations of the last explosion still rattling through the airlock structure. I've done enough damage now to send them into full-blown panic. But it's not enough. They don't know who they're dealing with yet. Their mistake wasn't just trying to kill me. No, that was rookie stuff. Their real mistake was underestimating my ability to adapt, to learn from my environment and turn it to my advantage. Every piece of equipment I've hacked, every system I've overridden, is a testament to the sheer fact that I'm a survivor. The next step in my plan is a bit more daring. I'm going to completely disable their propulsion systems. They'll have no way to maneuver, no way to escape the hellstorm I've unleashed inside their station. If I'm lucky, I'll trigger a cascading power failure that'll force them to do the one thing I want: evacuate. I pry open another maintenance hatch. The controls hidden behind a layer of bioorganic material that's more alien tech than anything I've ever seen. The Centauri love their hybrid designs, and it's been both a curse and a blessing. The tech might look beautiful, but when you've spent your entire career fixing broken stations, you can't help but notice the flaws. I slot my tools in, bypassing their complicated interfaces with a speed that would impress even my most seasoned colleagues back home. I'm sure the Centauri are watching through the surveillance feeds by now, trying to track my every move. But what they don't realize is that their cameras, their sensors, all malfunctioning, all part of the design I've created. 14 minutes of oxygen. I finish with the propulsion system. The power grid is down to a trickle, and that's all I need. I plug in one final override, just to make sure their central core won't restart the power flow without my say-so. This thing's not coming back online, not while I'm still breathing. But there's no time to revel in my work. The station is about to get very unstable very fast, and I'm not so sure how much longer I've got before the whole thing goes up like a fireworks display. I float toward the command deck, slowly, methodically. Every movement I make is calculated. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. The doors to the central control room are locked down, but that's nothing I can't handle. I activate another override sequence, sending a pulse through the airlock's mainframe to disengage the locking mechanisms. The door creaks open, revealing the control room beyond, bathed in red light. And standing in the middle of it all, looking completely unfazed, is Ambassador Drax. His iridescent skin gleams in the dim emergency lighting, his forearms crossed in what could almost be a gesture of amusement. But I don't trust it for a second. The Centauri are too proud, too arrogant, and I know that look. It's the kind of look that says, I've already won. You're persistent, Commander Calder. Drax's voice is soft, but it carries a weight of something far darker. I admire that, but you must know it's futile. I don't respond right away. I'm too busy observing his movements. He's standing in front of a console, his fingers dancing across it like a musician playing a delicate tune. I can't help but feel a cold sweat trickle down the back of my neck. He's calm, too calm, and I know that kind of calm always comes before the storm. You've done well, he continues, his voice smooth as silk. But I've already seen through your tricks. The station is already on lockdown, and your sabotage won't reach the core. Your systems are failing, but it's too late for you to make any more significant impact. I feel a surge of frustration. They really think they've got me cornered, don't they? You're so sure of yourself, I mutter, tapping the side of my helmet as I look at the still blinking lights on the control panel. How long do you think your station will hold up with no power? Drax tilts his head slightly, as if pondering my words. I'm not concerned about the station, he replies, his tone almost condescending. I'm concerned about you. You should be dead by now, Calder. You should have died in the vacuum of space. But here you are, defying expectations. You think you can destroy us? You think you're the first human to try. His words are like poison, but I don't let them affect me. I've been underestimated my entire life. It's something I've learned to use to my advantage. I lock eyes with him through the cracked visor of my helmet and smile. I'm not trying to destroy you, I say, letting the words linger in the air. I'm just trying to remind you of one thing. Never mess with an engineer who has nothing left to lose. I press the button on the side of my suit, and the final phase of my plan begins. A ripple of energy passes through the station, cutting through its power grid like a hot knife through butter. The central core is still intact, but everything else? It's going dark. Systems are failing. Alarms are blaring, and the artificial gravity is flickering, making the room feel like it's about to drop out from under us. Drax's eyes widen in surprise. For the first time since I entered the room, I see a flicker of fear. Too little, too late. What have you done? He snarls. I don't respond. There's no need. The message is clear. The Serenity Nexus is coming down, piece by piece, and I'm the one holding the detonator. The final explosion is already primed. I've made sure of it. I'm not here to just make a mess. I'm here to burn this place to the ground, to send a message. I'm going to make them remember the human who survived, who adapted, who turned the tables, and who left their precious station in ruins. The countdown has begun, and with every second, I feel the fire of a scorned engineer burning brighter. They didn't just underestimate me. They didn't just think they could get rid of me. They made the biggest mistake of their lives. And now, they're going to pay for it. 11 minutes of oxygen. The seconds are ticking by like a drumbeat, each one amplifying the weight of what's coming. 11 minutes of oxygen. It's not much. It's just enough to finish this. I stand in the command center, watching as the unstable systems of the Serenity Nexus begin to unravel around me. Drax's smug confidence is starting to crack, and it's beautiful. For all their advanced technology, for all their superior minds, the Centauri have one fatal flaw. They think they're untouchable. But the moment you believe you're untouchable is the moment you get burned. I can see it now. Panic spreading like wildfire. The alarms are getting louder, their frequency rising as the station's life support systems begin to break down. The lights flicker erratically, casting an eerie, intermittent glow across the control room. A low hum fills the air as the emergency power grids activate, but they're not going to hold for long. Not with the catastrophic failures I've set in motion. The cascade of failures is unstoppable now. Drax straightens, his posture becoming more rigid, his forearms twitching ever so slightly. He's still trying to regain control, still acting like he's the one in charge. But there's nothing he can do. He doesn't know it yet, but this station is already dead. I see you've activated the failsafes, Drax says slowly, his voice calm, but carrying a subtle edge. You think you're clever, Calder, but you won't survive this. We'll find you, and when we do, you'll wish you had died in space. I can't help but grin. He has no idea how much I'm enjoying this. You're right about one thing, I say, my voice low and steady. You'll find me. But by the time you do, your station will be a pile of slag, and I'll be long gone. He narrows his eyes, clearly trying to calculate his next move. But there's nothing he can do. The detonators I planted in their core are on a fail-safe timer, set to go off in exactly 8 minutes. By the time he figures out what's really happening, it'll be too late. I don't wait for him to respond. My hands move quickly, finalizing the last of the overrides on his station's control systems. As I do, a series of messages start flashing across my helmet's HUD. The Centauri's systems are scrambling to recover, but it's all just a waste of time. The explosion I've set in motion is imminent, and there's no stopping it. Drax takes one step toward me, but I raise a hand, signaling him to stop. I have nothing left to say to him. In fact, I've said everything I need to. The station's destruction will do the talking for me. I turn and float back to the access door, my gloves securing themselves around the control panel. Fingers dancing over the alien keys as if I've done this 1,000 times. I've been working on space stations my whole life, but this is different. This isn't just maintenance. It's vengeance. It's a statement. I watch as the power grid flickers once more, the lights dimming further. The once glorious, shimmering hull of the Serenity Nexus now seeming fragile in the void of space. The shimmering bioorganic architecture is starting to look more like a fragile, over-decorated toy than a mighty warship. And I'll be the one to break it. 7 minutes. The station is close to losing its structural integrity. The cascading failures I've triggered have compromised everything from its cooling systems to its gravity generators. It's only a matter of time before the entire place starts to collapse in on itself. I'm almost at the escape hatch. One last emergency pod left, and it's going to take me far enough to watch the fireworks from a safe distance. A low rumble shakes the station, followed by a series of loud, shuddering noises as its remaining backup generators kick in. But it's no use. The station is out of time, and so are they. The Centauri can throw everything they have at this place, but it won't save them. I hear a crackling sound behind me, and then Drax's voice, tinged with something I haven't heard from him before, desperation. You don't know what you're doing, Calder. You've sealed your fate. Once the station's core blows, you won't be able to escape. You will burn with us. I don't even turn to face him. You're forgetting one thing, Ambassador. I call over my shoulder, my fingers working with precision to complete the final sequence of my plan. You don't get to decide when I die. The final sequence is set. I pull the emergency lever, activating the last failsafe, a massive electromagnetic pulse that will disable every system across the Serenity Nexus, sending it into complete chaos. Every last bit of their high-tech infrastructure will go dark, and there'll be no way for them to stabilize anything. With the core overloaded, they'll have no choice but to evacuate or die in their own destruction. 5 minutes. I glance one last time at the control room. Drax is still standing there, his eyes locked on me, watching with that mixture of disbelief and anger. He's realized it now. He knows this isn't just a human malfunction, it's revenge. A lesson in why you never underestimate the one species who survived everything this universe has thrown at them. I don't wait for him to make his next move. I punch in the final code that will detonate the secondary power relay, ensuring that there is no escape for them. With a final hiss of my suit's remaining air supply, I turn and launch myself toward the escape pod. For minutes, the doors to the pod seal behind me, and I hear the loud thrumming of the station's final tremors as its core begins to collapse. The countdown is still ticking in my helmet, but I know it's too late for anyone aboard. The Serenity Nexus is done, and when it finally detonates, there will be nothing left but a cloud of debris, a cosmic reminder of the Centauri's arrogance. I pull back the lever to release the pod into space, and within moments, I'm floating clear of the station's blast radius. The pod's thrusters engage, sending me drifting toward the darkness, away from the flaming wreckage that will soon become the Centauri's tomb. I glance at the oxygen levels once more. 3 minutes. I can't help but laugh as the Serenity Nexus begins to tremble, the first signs of its impending doom. My hand is steady on the controls as I orient myself to watch the show. It's time. With just seconds to spare, the explosion rips through the core, and I can feel the shockwave vibrate through the fabric of space itself. The Centauri's perfect station, their symbol of dominance and superiority, shatters in a burst of flame and light. The shock waves reach me moments later, and I feel the heat of the explosion even through the thick walls of the escape pod. In that moment, I don't just feel satisfaction. I feel something deeper, something primal, a sense of justice. This is what happens when you think you can play God with a human life. 2 minutes, and as the stars outside the pod blur into streaks of light, I know one thing for sure. They'll never forget who I am. They'll never forget what I've done. And most importantly, they'll never forget what happens when you leave an engineer to die. 1 minute. I can still hear the distant thunderous hum of the Serenity Nexus tearing itself apart. The explosion wasn't just powerful. It was a symphony of destruction, one that I orchestrated with a precision no one thought a human could ever muster. I float in my escape pod, watching through the small viewport as the Centauri station disintegrates in front of me. The fireball is magnificent, lighting up the void of space like a second sun, but I'm not done yet. I don't feel any relief. Not yet. It's ironic, really. They thought they could wipe me out with a single flick of a switch, toss me into the cold void without a second thought. They thought my death would be a statement of their superiority. But instead, it's a lesson, a reminder, and I'm going to make sure they understand it fully. The fireball from the Serenity Nexus fades as a debris cloud begins to spread, scattering across the infinite blackness of space. Some of it glimmers as it reflects the light of the binary stars, but most of it will eventually be lost, floating aimlessly until it burns up in a distant atmosphere or is sucked into the gravitational pull of some nearby planet. Nothing but the remnants of the Centauri's mistake. 50 seconds. I pull up the pod systems and check the comms. Still nothing. The Centauri never bothered to fix the signal array that would have let me communicate with their fleet. Good. I don't need them anymore. There's no one left to warn them of what's coming next. They'll be too busy dealing with the wreckage of their precious station to realize I've set my next plan into motion. They'll never make it in time. I've done it. I've hit them where it hurts. Not in the way they would have expected, though. I didn't need to destroy an entire fleet. I didn't need to fire a single shot. All I needed was one escape pod, one human brain, and a very specific set of skills. Skills that, apparently, they underestimated. 30 seconds. I pushed the thruster controls, shifting my pod's course to drift further away from the wreckage. No point in sticking around. My mission is complete. I've made my statement. The Centauri will have to lick their wounds for a while, regroup, and rebuild. It'll be years before they recover fully. And maybe by then, they'll think twice before messing with someone they consider primitive. I can already imagine the debates starting among their councils. The whispers of how a single human outwitted them. How, despite all their technological superiority, they were beaten by someone they saw as insignificant. It'll be the kind of humiliation no high-tech species will ever forget. 20 seconds. I glance out the viewport again. The stars are just dots now, small against the overwhelming black of space. The wreckage from the station has dispersed far enough, and the shockwave from the explosion has faded. No one else is coming. No Centauri fleet. No rescue. Just me. And then, as if on cue, the pod systems beep a warning. The last of my oxygen is running low. 10 seconds. I'm getting low on time, but I'm not worried. I hit the button for emergency oxygen supply, feeling the familiar cool rush fill my suit. It's a temporary fix, just enough to make it back, just enough to make sure the next step in my plan goes off without a hitch. They don't know this, but their technology doesn't just end with their station. Their influence stretches far, like a cancer through the galaxy. It's not just about getting rid of one ship, one station. It's about making sure they know that no matter how far they've come, there will always be someone watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The real lesson I've taught them? Humans are survivors. We adapt, we learn, and we make sure that when we fight, we do it on our own terms. 5 seconds. I set the course for my return trip. I'll be fine. The next part of the plan is already in motion, a back door already open, a final piece that they never saw coming. I had time to slip the data chips into their systems, while they were too busy patting themselves on the back for their superior technology. Now, all that's left is for them to come crawling back, begging for help. 0 seconds. The countdown ends and everything goes silent. The pod drifts through the cold emptiness, and the remaining seconds tick away, each one reminding me of the journey that brought me here. The endless struggle, the fight for survival, the thirst for justice. The stars outside seem brighter now. The colors are sharper, and as I feel the pulse of the pod's engines engage, I realize that I've finally earned my victory. In the end, the aliens didn't just leave me to die. They made the mistake of thinking they could break me. And now, the Serenity Nexus is gone. The Centauri's legacy of arrogance is in ruins. And I, Calder Drake, am still alive. The pod's engines hum as it propels me toward a new future. One where I don't just survive. I thrive. I can hear their voices, now, from light years away, screaming in frustration. But it's too late. I won.